The Winter of the Soul, Part 2. We're looking at one of the most extreme examples of suffering in the Bible, and that was Job. Winter had come to his soul, to his land, to his family, in a huge way. And we, the readers, see the two scenarios that are taking place, one in the heavens, one on the earth. And there seems to be a cosmic wager or war between the snaring Satan and God over this person called Job. And Satan says to God, does Job fear God for nothing? With the real question being this: can a human being hold on to God in the face of suffering? And Satan is really saying, is Job just a fine weather God? Does he love you in the way that children love the ice cream man? Turn off the tap of blessing and watch how fast he turns off the tap of devotion. You know, someone once said, after all, suffering is the test of love. Things are starting to go downhill for Job. He ends up on an ash heap at the town dump. Remember, he's lost absolutely everything, including his health. And remember that all this seemed to come from nowhere. It was sudden, it was confusing, and it seemed to be totally unfair. Even Job's wife says to him, curse God and die, remembering that she also was suffering because she'd lost everything, including her children. But Job doesn't listen to her and doesn't curse God. He says this instead: shall we accept good from God and not trouble? Of course, like any human being, Job is struggling big time inside. And then his unhelpful friends gather round him and stare at him, and they weep aloud. In fact, the story says that they sat on the ground with him for 7 days and 7 nights. No one said a word to him, because they saw how great his suffering was. And I said his friends were unhelpful, but actually at the start, their silence was brilliant. Their silence was almost a gift to Job. It's just their words that were unhelpful and turned the whole thing to custard. And actually their silence started off a Jewish tradition, I understand, which was sitting with a person who's suffering, Shiva. Literally sitting sevens. Friends will come and sit with one who mourns over a period of a week. And Paul in Romans talks about mourning with those who mourn. Perhaps he was thinking of this. He doesn't say find an explanation to give them about why they're suffering or remind them that everything's going to be okay so they can stop crying now. This is a lesson for us all. And after 7 days, Job opens his mouth and speaks and basically curses the day he was born. And Job opens the tap for a long time, pours out his level of bitterness, confusion, sorrow, and even anger towards God. That's staggering. He wants to know why God has forsaken him. This is very raw, but completely normal for someone going through suffering the way Job is. So his friends reply to Job and come up with 22 chapters voicing one central idea. And it was the theology of their day, the doctrine of retribution, if you like. The idea is that goodness results in prosperity and blessing. Wickedness results in suffering. So Job, if you're suffering badly, you must have brought it on yourself. If you're no longer close to God, who do you think moved? If you will repent, he will deliver you from suffering. That's their message. And even some Christians and some churches can buy into this doctrine of retribution. Something like, if you were just engaging in spiritual warfare, Satan would be defeated and you'd be delivered. Or, God promises to heal. If we have enough faith, if you just had enough faith, just prayed boldly enough, you'd be healed. We assume that someone has done something wrong. But here's the great message. While God hates pain, he can also redeem it. It does not mean he is absent. I'll say that again. It does not mean that he is absent. If you want to look at it another way, surveys have revealed when thousands of people were asked what had most contributed to their spiritual growth, the number one answer was pain. Of course, that doesn't mean that we can go up to someone in enormous pain and say, well, it's good news because you're going to grow a lot. Pain is deeper and more mysterious than that. God hasn't gone anywhere in the winter of your soul. He is still there. God bless you.